Hey everybody, welcome to this week's M3 class. Do you have another trade recommendation, I believe, for us? So with that, why don't we go ahead and dive in. Nice little relief rally on the ceasefire, the tentative ceasefire. I had a gut feeling that we would see that and they would have some resolution, and we did. Whether it's permanent or not, I think that there's still very good chance we push up again and then they say, oh no, that's not good enough. And, you know, this is still a bear flag pattern. And I want to kind of lead with that and also show you on the total market cap what I'm seeing, you know. And so this kind of pattern, I still believe, more than likely plays out. Doesn't mean that it has to. Could go either way. The measured move on this bear flag from over here puts us down into this support zone. You know, I hate to admit, I love and I hate at the same time, and hate's a strong word, but to have all of these great indicators, but perhaps the best one is the simplest, and it's the order block detector. Where are the buyers? They're down here. Where are the sellers? They're up here. So, and this bear flag pattern, measured move, the white line pushes down to around this area. So, you know, I think that's reasonable that we see that, and certainly that this push up. The Clarity Act is apparently getting closer to being passed, and so there are kind of two paths we could take here. It's impossible to know. We're putting in higher lows, but I don't think it's not reasonable that this is the ultimate low. And from a timing perspective, this is mostly review for everybody, so we'll get into some new stuff here, I promise. But in this chart, the 14-month to 13-month pattern from high to low, even if we have a month ahead of time, remember we had all-time high before the halving, this last halving, so I put this here as a month early, puts us at September of 2026 as the low. You know, so we could either meander along here or get a little bit of a bounce and then drop, which has typically happened in the downside. So we'll see this push down and see a little bit of a bounce, like over here we saw a bit of a bounce, and then the big drop and consolidation like this, and then a deeper drop down to that blue line, which is on the monthly time frame, it's going to be the 50 period SMA. And we have another chart that we'll look at for that. So you know, I think that it's a good time to be cautious and still trade the bounces, but be careful and not go all in and have FOMO. Certainly certainly not right now. A little bit of a tongue twister there. Okay, so any questions on anything, by the way? How many of you caught that nice trade on Zcash, by the way? And guys, you know, they are happening. We do have opportunities, and so I've been talking about Zcash for some time, and I was playing around with the Coinbase futures, and as I posted last night, had a nice exit on that. I think it's probably going to pull back from here, which is good news, and we'll see another opportunity to go higher. But I do like this chart very much. You guys know that we love this breakout and kind of retest pattern. So I would expect to see Zcash. It doesn't mean it goes higher. It could. But to pull back here, to retest that $300 level, I think that would be an excellent time to buy back in. We have this buy block here. And even if it comes down to 285, I've been updating the mentor model portfolio. We had little tech issues, so I recommend, if you are still in mentoring, to bookmark that. But anyway, as you guys know, often we will see a retest of the midpoint of any vector candles, right? So that's a big fancy word. It just means a fair value gap. The market makers had a buy-sell imbalance, and so they'll let it run, but then typically I often see it retest the midpoint. And in this case, it coincides exactly with the midpoint of this money flow block. And so let me just check and see. Some of you, I have a couple new mentoring students. So yeah, so guys, asking for more clarity on that. So basically, this light green block is part of our ERI, the early reversal indicator pro. And this is money flow. So this is strong vote of confidence. We definitely want to look for those. But specifically, what I've noticed is that these will tend to support price. And so it's anywhere in this green block, we would expect to see these buyers, the people that were buying here, to support that price. And institutions generally will say, they'll have their models and things and say, well, we like Zcash at this price or higher. So if it comes down into that range, let's say retail takes profit and they're still buying because they have that as a fair value range, I guess. And a lot of this, are things that I've empirically noticed, and not all of this is researched and learned. Sometimes, a lot of times it is. But at any rate, we don't need to know. We go to the doctor. We don't need to know all the biology. He'll just say, well, here's the problem. Here's the medicine, right? And don't tell me about the what's the old saying? Don't tell me about the labor pains. Just show me the baby, right? Old marketing joke. But anyway, so that's what I would say is look for pullbacks to that $300 range. I would actually put buy limit orders at 300 and at 285. Simple. And even if we push higher, I think this does kind of pull back. I want to point out, a lot of trading is easier actually than people think. And specifically, look for patterns. We're in a downtrend, but typically how many up bars do you see here before price kind of reverses? Profit taking kind of reverts to the mean. All the way back here at the top of this trend channel, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, give or take that little one, 1, 2, 1, 2, so 1, 2, 3, reverse. So what I'm seeing here and suggesting is we'll probably pull back here. Why? We've had 3 up days in a row, hitting some resistance at this 200 day SMA, the blue line. Now we are also above support here on the 21 and 50 day exponential moving averages, and they're about to cross. So it's very bullish. Price, remember the on the ice analogy, when we fall below the ice and we're drowning here. The thin ice is the 21-day, that's the orange. Thick ice is the green, the 50-day. And so we fell through the ice, tried to get our head above the water, couldn't. Big cell block here, pushed it down, tried again to get above, drowning. I hate to use such a morbid analogy, but it's a pretty good one, right? So at any rate, so where are we now? We finally gathered enough strength and to push back up above that, sort of got an extra life, if you use a video game analogy. Either way you remember it, just remember it. This is bullish. So, but as I said, likely kind of retraced, likely going to see some profit taking. Now, so how do we massage that? Well, Zcash is. I was talking to a new client yesterday about, what is the hot narrative of the cycle. And so there's a caveat to this. So I would say have some Zcash to have some skin in the game. Buy on any pullbacks, but I wouldn't sell all of it. And here's why. If you guys remember August of 2021, I don't know if any of you were here then, but I had recommended Solana in our August 1st newsletter, 2021. It was trading at $37, and I said it's going to pull back to $35. That was a moving average support. That'll be our entry. And it hit exactly. We nailed it at $35. But on that first pump, it seemed unusually strong. Now, the narrative back then was transaction speed. And they were saying Solana can do 50,000 transactions per second. And all of this was all new. And that was a strong narrative. And so we took profits too early and sold all of it and waiting for a pullback that never happened. Why? It was the strong narrative of the cycle. Okay, these are important nuances. So in general, I would say, wait for this to pull back to the midpoint of this buy zone. However, because this is likely the strong narrative and of the cycle, I think it is, privacy coins, we can see that. They're surging. Zcash, Dash, Monero, they're all setting up. And so that means, what that means in English, just to get to the point, right, is that these can pump for longer than normal. And we all know that markets can act irrational longer than, we have money to ride it out. And so, again, that's for that reason, I would have some Zcash, at least just hold on, at least till we get to 600, back over 600. But taking some profits, selling half or a third or half at each of these pumps and buying back lower. That's the way to play this, dollar cost average. But I do think this is a strong narrative. We're seeing this play out. And there was a recent article and I think it was Barry Silbert. Correct me if I'm wrong, but one of these bigwig players, basically saying that either it was either Barry Silbert or Peter Thiel, I think, saying that, hey, look, Bitcoin's not going to 10x from here. I mean, maybe it will eventually, but he said, or 500x. It's one of those. But he said, but privacy coins like Zcash can. So I'm paying close attention to that. And Zcash has some unique features where you can make your transactions private or make them public. It's up to you. At any rate, we can see, all of that aside, we can see this big green box here means big buyers are buying. Okay, institutional level buyers. We also saw a number of the ERI. Okay, so the early reversal indicators. We want to keep in mind, this is something I haven't really talked about a lot, but when we see a number of ERIs in a row going higher, we want to pay attention as well. Higher lows in a buy block. Okay, I'll turn off the Bollinger Band for now. I just, currently we're above the Bollinger Band. Another reason why I think we'll roll over. And actually, I won't turn it off just yet. I see these vertical lines here. We've covered this. It's in the YouTube training. And if anyone wants the full YouTube training for our indicators, just let us know. And Myrene, if you're listening, maybe you could post that in the chat. Because I go into all the detail. But on the Bollinger Bands, people always ask, when should I take profits? Well, the answer is either in a sell block or when the price is above the Bollinger Band, touching or above it. And what we've done is we've color-coded that. And I'm not sure if you guys can see this, but do you see these vertical red lines here? And I probably should have the chat open. And you guys are ignoring me either way. So, yes, so the vertical red lines mean that price has closed above the Bollinger Band. Now, I will usually look to take profits if it touches it, but invariably. Now, and these are our own Bollinger Bands. You guys know this, that the normal Bollinger Bands, it's for stocks and everything, they don't work for crypto. And I made a tweak, I made a change inside of this that we created, essentially increased the standard deviation for the added volatility in crypto. Yeah, you don't need to remember what I just said. But anyway, the point is, when we see price touching that upper Bollinger Band, it's time for it to reverse. And as my friend Steve Nissen taught me years ago, when it touches one side of the Bollinger Band, it generally will head to the opposite extreme and touch that before resuming. Not always, but we could see that it touched back here, and it came down, it came down, it came down. It touched the lower Bollinger Band, got down in this range, and then what did it do? It's kind of pushed up, push down, push up. So, where we are now, all that matters is vertical red line is a sell area. So this is why I think Zcash probably going to pull down anywhere in this area. So, all right, let's see who's been listening. Where should you put your buy limit orders on Zcash for extra credit? All right, I'm going to watch the chat for that, and maybe I'll just call on people. Michael, Francisco, we just talked about this. So you guys should know this. Dr. T, where should you put your buy limit orders? Okay, guys, hopefully you're paying attention and not checking email. We have money coming back into this market, so turn off everything else and listen to what I'm telling you, because it's been a brutal year. But I don't want to hear you guys whining if you miss some of these moves here that we're about to see, that I believe we're about to see. So anyway, oh, I'm sorry. You know what? My bad. There's the chat opened up on a different tab, and I wasn't seeing this. So, Francisco, good. Well, let's see. What do we say? 285. I said 285 is the midpoint. Yeah, and Adrian, good. Michael, good. 285 and 300. Great, you guys are paying attention. All right, good to hear. All right, so Zcash, keep an eye on that. Buy pullbacks. There's a couple other ones I'm watching. But this one I think is going to be the one that we want to catch. And I made a nice little trade on the futures. I was long futures, the Coinbase futures down in here. Dr. T says 280-ish. Yeah, I mean, look, you might miss it, but sure. Anywhere in here, the midpoint's 285. Here's the thing. You're all right. If you really wanted to do it right, and you guys saw me do this with Solana a number of times, as set multiple buy limit orders, you could do all the way down here at 255 if you wanted to, but you might miss it. I would do it in the green money flow blocks. So that would be 260, Probably want to do, I would say 275, 280, 285, all the way up till up in here and anywhere in here. So we have a unique opportunity for this. This is one of the highest probability patterns. Okay, and if it were to drop back down in the parallel channel, we have a lot of buy support. Let's take a look at the weekly. I don't want to spend too much time on Zcash, but these are patterns you want to remember and watch. What else do we have? On the weekly chart, if we see this close above this, we have a channel breakout. And one could also argue it's a bull flag, right? So we want to be watching this carefully going into Sunday. If it is a bull flag, a number of ways we could draw this. I don't want to be too aggressive. Let's say that that's the flagpole. That's the flagpole. This is the flag. And the measured move then is the same distance from here on a breakout. So that would put us at $2,000 Zcash, you guys. How many of you guys would like that? And sometimes, it depends how you draw it. Some people will draw it like this. So there is 10x potential here on Zcash. So we want to be watching on Sunday night. Now, on the caveat, if on Sunday, if it pulls back down here below 275, what would that mean? It would mean that would be bearish, right? We'd have a big topping tail, and if it's back in the channel, then we're probably looking at coming back down in here again. But I don't think so. I don't know. These markets, it's always good to know what area we're in. Aggressive. I keep forgetting these. There's the aggressive mode. There's the conservative mode, and there's a protective mode. That's it. Aggressive, conservative, protective. And technically we're in protective mode because we're in this bear market. But a breakout like that, trying to be at least conservative, buying and selling the pumps. When do we want to be aggressive in the bull market? September, October. Now, some people are suggesting we see the bull come back sooner. Maybe. We'll have to make that decision later on, but that would really require that we take out all of these sellers and we go to new highs, and either way that would be a double from here. So I don't want to oversell this. Don't bet the farm, but I would focus on Zcash on any pullbacks. We are rejecting here anyway. Case made. On the weekly chart, I'm doing this so you guys see my thought process, and hopefully some of you are saying, yeah, I got it, you do it. That's good, guys. Repetition, mother of all learning. In corporate environments, they will repeat their values and mission statement and all that nonsense, and till you're like sick of it, because that's how you internalize it, right? So we will continue to do that. What else do we see here, though? Look at that, you guys. A weekly TSI breaking above 20. So we are starting to see the stars align, as it were, right? And so what do we have on the RSI? The RSI is back above 50. Bullish. See this cross? Had a recent bullish divergence. So, and now why do we look at the weekly? The weekly's like that cruise ship. Lots of momentum. I love the analogy because last week I was on a giant cruise ship, and just these things can't stop or turn around easily. When they get going, there's a lot of momentum. I don't know how these things float, to be honest, because this thing was just massive and full of steel, and but apparently they figured that out. I don't really care to know, just as long as they do float. So, point being, we want to watch that weekly chart, because when it's oversold like this and starts to turn, it starts to build momentum, guys, it's going to keep going for a while. We can see that over here on the momentum here. We saw the trend strength indicator was oversold. It was going from San Juan to Bermuda, and it got to Bermuda, and it turned around to go back to San Juan. So it just tends to just not really maybe a little diversion to St. Lucia. You can tell I still have the Caribbean on my mind. And then a Richard Branson cruised by right here, and so we turned around to wave at him. True story, though. We were on the ship, and we were going by Necker Island, where Richard Branson lives, and I was lucky enough to spend a week there and raise some money for Virgin Unite 10 years ago, and got invited down to Necker Island with 19 other entrepreneurs. Anyway, story for later. But we were going by on his $100 million cruise ship, and so what does he do? He gets on a little catamaran, and with a captain, and sails out behind this giant cruise ship with making giant waves. And here's this old Richard Branson, strapped in case he falls overboard. But that's just kind of the kind of guy he is. How you do everything, how you do anything is how you do everything. So he comes by and to wave at everybody, at least specifically our group, because we had 500 people, and we were on the back of the ship. So I have a video and a picture, little Richard Branson waving at us, right? So anyway, cool stuff. Point being, now we've come back to San Juan and we're turning around to head back off to St. Martin, or one of those BBIs, Tortola, all these places we went, right? So point is, guys, this is not likely to turn around. Occasionally, we get up here and have to turn around because someone fell overboard or whatever. But guys, these stupid analogies, they're kind of silly, but I think you'll remember it. The mind is visual. One of my old mentors, Bob Proctor, taught us that if you say the dog is not chasing the cat, what do you see in your mind's eye? You see a dog chasing the cat. So these visuals hopefully will help you in the long run. And so let's see, is it a cup and handle? No, it's not a cup and handle. There's no handle. But at any rate, the point of this is, as of now, this looks very bullish, and so a pullback should shoot higher. Our signals are pointing green. We have the TSI, we have the RSI. Now, what else do we have? We almost have the signal line. This is kind of our version of a MACD about to turn green. And so, you guys remember the trade success checklist. If anyone doesn't have that, let me know and we'll give you the link. But if you are, once you're proficient, you do the trade success checklist in your head. And so we would be checking off all of the above, breaking above the resistance of the 21 and 50, check. And on here we had the TSI green above 20, check. So that's 2, and typically with 2 I'll start entering the trade. We have the RSI. I should probably update this. We had bullish divergence back here, the green dot, but being above 50 is in bullish territory. We'll look at some longer term. We'll look at the monthly charts here in a minute, see if anything's changing, and then we have the signal lines. So potentially 4 and turning higher. Here's another indicator. Let's see, TradingView messaged me. Okay, yeah, that guy got another editor's pick apparently, and they sent me $100. That was nice of them. So the down here, this is called the DSS Bressert. It's a little bit faster oscillator. It's very much like our trend strength indicator, right? So we don't need both. It's a little bit more smoothed, but this is also turning bullish. So I think Zcash is showing all the signs of a good entry on this. If we go back to the daily and check the cycles indicator, daily cycle low back here, it doesn't really tell us too much on these. Now I'm going to look at our super AI signal too, and okay, look at that. So the super AI we haven't released yet, but it is a combination of all of our top indicators plus things like candlestick patterns, the VWAP, volume, weighted average price. I don't want to get into all that with you guys because it's, a lot of day traders use it. But the stochastics, bullish, momentum, bullish, money flow, bullish, RSI, bullish, volume imbalance. We see this spike in the volume down here. That's important. So, and something that Joe's created called spike volume. And that is not only a volume imbalance, it's a significant surge in volume. Do you see that down here? Always watch volume. If we are going up with volume, the move is more believable. All right, so and then based on all of this, 75% bullish here on the daily time frame. The weekly time frame is still catching up, right? These indicators, but that's the point. When the daily and weekly align, huge moves happen. So we are positioning ahead of that because as we start to see these things turn bullish, now this is interesting because the TSI is green and bullish. The RSI, I'm not gonna ask Joe how these are calculating. But they're going to start turning higher soon enough, and when they do, I think we're going to see a nice big move in Zcash. Okay. Now that being said, always have a stop loss, and so anything could happen. This whole Middle East conflict, there's a 2-week reprieve. I don't want to get into all that, but the 10 points they propose are really not acceptable. So they've got some arm wrestling to do still as of yet. So anyway, point being, but here's the thing. You have a safety zone in here. If you want a stop loss, you could even have your stop loss down around 225. And that's originally where I had it. That would be below the bottom of this buy block. That would be a little bit of aggressive one. On the mentoring model portfolio that some of you have access to, I raised it to around 275 just to protect profits. But at any rate, if you're holding a bunch of Zcash, what I would honestly do is set multiple stop loss orders, stop limit. So 275, maybe one at 250, 225, and stagger it. That way you're protecting your profits. Let's see, Michael saying, so far Zcash has followed Bitcoin, and most of us still think Bitcoin has another pullback to the 0% K area. I don't know what that means. Doesn't that indicate it's likely Zcash? Yeah, so that's a good question. 50K correction. Yeah, Michael. So, right, and I've been saying that for a while. That is also something that I covered yesterday with, I think it was Peter. Is Peter here? New mentoring client. So that's the thing. We don't want to be in aggressive mode here on Zcash when Bitcoin and total market cap have the likely potential to retrace down in these ranges. Total market cap. I mean, this thing, maybe it's somewhere in here. We're getting a bit of a bounce. But if Bitcoin drops heavily, and let's go back to Bitcoin, that's going to drag everything down and certainly temper the movements higher on any of those coins, and including Zcash. So, look, I think probably we push higher to Bitcoin as 74, 75K, but that's an important level and line in the sand. And if it can't hold, then they'll likely, down to that 50K region. And, not to pat myself on the back, but I think I was one of the first people saying that. Now, a lot of people are coming out saying 50K, 50K, 50K. Maybe 46K. I really don't think 30K is in the cards. I don't think that's going to happen. But, we have the summer, the old saying, sell in May and go away, Wall Street. And, but, the winds of change are upon us. Michael, strategy continues to buy. And similarly, Morgan Stanley just is coming out with, if they haven't released it yet, it's imminent. I've seen 2 dates, one next week, one was today. Let's just see if it's in here. The Morgan Stanley ETF. It's technically a trust, but essentially it's their ETF. Now, why is that important? There's something like $1.7 trillion in their ecosphere, if that's even a word, but they have, or maybe it's like, I think it's 17,000 registered investment advisors. It's a lot. And so it's not going to happen overnight. But basically, Morgan Stanley is saying, all right, green light, you guys can sell this now. Send out a blast email to all the RIAs, the registered investment advisors, and which I am not, but for the record. But at any rate, to one to many, I can share my educational purposes only, not financial advice. Right. But all of those guys can then pick up their phone and to their client list and say, hey, that Bitcoin thing, yeah, we like it now. I think you should own some. And we recommend 2%. That, to me, will keep us from going into the doldrums of the lows. Also, remember, we didn't get the blow off top. This is a Wall Street product now. It's institutionally based. We're not likely going to see these big, massive blow off tops or the 85% drawdowns that we saw in the past with retail. I don't think so. So, we squeeze that a little bit. And, I think at some point in here we'll start to go higher. But we can only go as far as we can see. From there, we'll be able to see further. So let's come back to this and let's see. So hopefully that answers the question. To that point, that's why I was saying take profits along the way. And be careful this does look great, but if Bitcoin rolls over and down, so will Zcash. And so, but is that a bad thing? I would love to load up the truck at $180 Zcash, right? And but I think Zcash is going to push higher for a bit. Let's do this real quick and look at Bitcoin signals on the weekly, because show me the charts, show me the charts. But however, look at this big sell block right here on Bitcoin. And, likelihood of at least retesting 60K. Because that's the 200 SMA. And so on that note, and we don't have Bitcoin above the 20 line. So there's some divergence there. And so let's take a look at this. And oops, did I not open the... Let me do this. I may not have all my charts open. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. And so we can do that. That'll be the monthly all studies. I wanted to show that too. We have the SMA one, Bitcoin, this one here. That should be starred there. And then we're going to look at the USDT study, because we don't want to make sure we don't take our eyes off that. Okay. And here, there, nope, this is the one here. So basically with this, we have the 50, 100, 200, and 300 week SMA. You guys have seen this before. Price has really never gone below the 300 week SMA. The FTX crash, it did briefly. Okay, but for the most part, the 200 and 300 week hold. The purple line and the white line, it held here. It dropped below that during the COVID crash. And then, of course, the last cycle, we got down to the 300. And then we had the the FTX collapse, Black Swan. But really, it got back there pretty fast, turned to support. Point being, where is that? So 60K is that 200-week SMA, that purple line. The purple line, pretty good support all the way back here and here. Now, so that's the 60K, but again, all of this aligns, and then maybe what you normally see is somebody that's been in trouble all the way and trying to hold on for dear life, and like Jump Trade, or the one that likely caused that October 10th. Was it's on the tip of my tongue. We were talking about it with Michael Turpin last week. Metricool, it starts with an M, but anyway, there's one of these that likely had to unwind a lot of their position. So maybe, one of these, typically what happens around this level is someone goes bankrupt, or they get hacked, or something like FTX happened. So where would that take us? 52K, that 50K to 52K. Okay, nothing's guaranteed, but more than likely, we can see this sell block too on the weekly in Bitcoin, more than likely. So let's say we push up for a week or two and Zcash rallies, you want to take profits, because when this rolls over, everything's going to roll over again, more than likely. But it is tricky, right? It's hard to, it's easy to get excited. And I was talking to somebody yesterday about this too. Always be wary of, if your chart setups look great on your altcoin or whatever, but not so much on the overall market, because rising tide lifts all ships, but also sinks all ships, right? So, I almost made a U.S. Navy versus the Iranian Navy analogy, but because we sank all the ships. But anyway, point being, we want to be a little bit careful here. I guess I hate to jump around too much. We're on a roll. I'll get to the news in a minute. So basically here we've got this other chart on the monthly time frame, and I've been adjusting this. This is a, where did I get this? This was somewhere, a fractal from somewhere in the past, and I think that's it. So basically we're looking at, could this happen? We could come down here to that purple line like we talked about, or something like this. We're seeing this potentially hold. Maybe we hold here. But at any rate, looking at the monthly time frame, we see with the RSI, the normal RSI and the monthly time frame, this is certainly an area we could be bottoming. We saw that in December of 18. We saw it in 2015. Saw a little throw under last cycle. Let's look at that weekly RSI, because this gives us a little bit better look at things. So I don't know, you guys. I mean, look, maybe. Let's put this in the maybe category. But I'm pretty sure the MACD is going to ruin the party, right? So, but, and it's a big but. Look, we've got here and here and here and there. So, and in each case on the weekly, we didn't retest once, sort of a V-shaped recovery. 1, 2, and this is that 26 level, 25, 26. So there's a good case to be made that maybe the bottom was in. Maybe we zigzag around for a bit, though, because back here, remember in 2022, Never mind. I was going to refer to that midsummer. Yeah, I was referring to this one. So disregard that. But in 2022, we came all the way down in June, and we zigzagged around a bit all the way till October, November, December. And if you'll remember, that's when I was saying to get back in. December of 2022, we relaunched M3 Active Trader, and I launched my Blood in the Streets report. And sure enough, by this January of 23, we had that monthly ERI that's only triggered 4 times go green. And so we could certainly see that. Maybe we bounce around in here. Maybe the bottom is in, and we zigzag around. Time wise, we'd probably be looking out a little farther. But look, we haven't retested the bottom before, so that's interesting. All right, so this is my job to kind of weigh all these things. On the money flow, seeing a bit of a bounce here, and that can zigzag around. This is a delayed chart; it's a monthly chart, so I don't give this too much credence, but it's interesting. If it comes down in these areas, now the money flow could still come back down, so that's a little bit of an unknown. That would be incongruent with what we just talked about. The stochastics RSI, usually I look at on a monthly or 2-month basis. And so on the monthly time frame, yeah, we're in bottoming territory. But, certainly we could still get down to that 50K region. And if we go to a 2-month, and this is my own analysis, guys. No one else is talking about this, right? So on the 2-month chart, we have not bottomed yet. Time-wise, and so that would put us where? Look at that, right around September of 2026. I think that's going to be the bottom, and give or take September, October. So in that time window, that's when we're going to be wanting to look to shift to aggressive mode, not now. Where are we on the monthly MACD? So on the 2-month MACD, and I almost wish I didn't look at this, it shows that we're just getting started on this little bear market. And we might have, last time we had quite a long period where the histogram went negative, and on this we just crossed. So, but let's look at the monthly chart. This is a little bit better, I could say. And according to this, we've had a deep drop here, deeper and faster than last time, and I think these things are going to accelerate a bit. So, and certainly the last cycle, this is where I was telling people to get out on that cross, to really pounding the table to get out of the market. And sure enough, that was the time to get out of the market back in December, January of 2021. And then we had this. Again, I was telling people to get out in November at 224K. And so, look, we just have a little more time on this. So point made, hopefully. Just revisiting the base case. So with that in mind, let's jump ahead here and take a quick look at the USDT dominance. I know we've talked about this ad nauseum. I did add this new portion of it to see when the bull market might be back, and I'll move that out of the way. But according to this, so the tether dominance money flow runs inversely to market cap and Bitcoin, and as we saw, I'll just move that out of the way. The last cycle, this little zigzag there pushed us up into the market cycle top here back when the lows, and then all the way up here, and then we came back. When it comes back and reverts to the lows, money's flowing out of the market into or out of stable coins into the market, and the opposite's been happening. So this blue fractal from back here, and a couple of you are new that we've been following here, suggested that either this would happen or this, right? But now we have invalidated the fringes that it's really looking more like that. And briefly we pushed into the we are in bear market territory. We got in there before. Now we've pulled back down in the crypto crash zone, and so the question is, what happens now? Do we kind of zigzag around and see another push higher, which would coincide with 50K Bitcoin? And I think probably it will. This yellow line is an approximation of the median, right? So the median all the way up through here. We'll have to see. What I will do is set, and I have an alert of USDT, that's Tether, USDT dominance, crossing 8.25%, because when we're getting up above that region, we're in bear market. So we've pulled back nicely to around the 7.57 range. Big question is what happens here. So we'll keep an eye on that. And if this ultimately happens, if we get up into the peak of the bear market, say around April, some people are saying big drop in April. We'll have to see what happens. But if that happens and it starts to revert, then we're in the process of kind of coming back into putting new highs. And anyway, we'll get to that. I don't like to project too far out in the future, but certainly this could zigzag around quite a while. And then time-wise, where does this puts us way out in the future? It only goes here to June of 27. So I don't know, you guys. I mean, according to the 4-year cycle, that would make sense. And the next all-time highs are in sort of 28. But I think we're going to have some fun in here. End of the year, we're going to see some nice rally action, I think, by then. Okay? All right. So, in English just means hang in there. So, all right, any questions on that? I think we've covered a lot of it here. Let's jump over to the news and talk about this for a minute. Oil falling, Bitcoin jumps to 72K. But is this Bitcoin price for real? I think there's some short covering in here. And I think a lot of people were short ahead of the... Operation Hellfire, Hell Fury, Operation Epic Fury, I don't know. You know what? I just came to me that, and I hope this isn't true, but do you remember back in COVID when who was it? The hedge fund guy came out and said, hell is coming, right? And I remember watching that and saying, this guy, he's a little bit too laying it on pretty thick, right? And my spidey sense is he's probably short. And sure enough, he was heavily short. He made a couple $2 billion because he was heavily short the market. And then he went on CNBC and scared the what out of everyone, saying hell is coming, the world is over. And I even posted, I'm like, this should be illegal. This is as bad as insider trading. If you know you can move the markets and you're going on CNBC and you're going to scare the bejesus out of people and you're short, that should be illegal, right? That shouldn't be allowed. And so, Trump's tweet here, that I kind of have that feeling like, what the hell is he doing? I mean, I've been a supporter mostly, but to come out here and say we're going to end the civilization, and then some people are posting on X that an account that's never been wrong, and then they put a picture of Barron Trump, went short oil futures, and oil falls here. So in long Bitcoin, and a lot of it, and made like $80 million. Well, I sure hope that doesn't come out that he was doing that. Maybe someone else in the White House is leaking things, but. And what was that guy's name? Anyone remember? He's got white hair. Here, I don't want to leave anything incomplete. Hell is coming. COVID quote. And what was his name? Bill Ackman. Yeah, this guy. Great, here it is. Came on CNBC. And just kind of totally scared everyone. Hell is coming, Ackman warned, urging 30-day nationwide shutdown to combat. Meanwhile, he was short and he made a couple $2 billion on that trade. Criminal. Should be criminal. Anyway, we'll see. Oil falls. Bitcoin jumps to 72K. But is this the price for real? Who knows? Rose towards 72K. Largely a short squeeze, I think. But also people saying, hey, that's good news. Some certainty. War may be ending. We'll all be friends again soon. Unlikely. And but yeah, oil went down and Bitcoin went up. So somebody made a bunch of money on that. At any rate, Bitcoin hits 3-week high with 77% rebound. That's quite a bit for Bitcoin. And as we can see here, that was down from about 68K to all the way up to about 72K. So $4,000. Nothing to sneeze at. And I won't go through the quotes. You guys have probably seen that. There's not much more to unpack here, I think. Key question is whether the relief rally can hold through the next cluster of catalysts. there's some good copy there. A cluster of catalysts, including the Fed minutes. Yeah, we have the Fed. We have CPI in the first diplomatic test there. Let's see. I want to take a look at FOMC and what do we think is happening there, and what the this is essentially a prediction market on this. So 98% chance no further rate cut here at the April meeting. Okay, and so no surprise there. So let's see. Argument of a bearish flag into resistance remains strong. Yeah, we've been talking about that for a while, the bear flag. And look, there's multiple bear flags here and here. And so this, to me, screams we're going to do another drop. And, what could invalidate that? Clarity Act passing, Middle East conflict over, new Fed chief coming in May. Let's take a look at that. And I should have looked 1 month ahead. And actually, we should look on Polymarket. Maybe one of you guys could pull it up and see what are the chances of a rate cut in May. So this is the April meeting. Oh, we don't have one in May, so it's in June, right? So current rate. So still no drop being priced in April. So they can't really do that. The Fed's in between a rock and a hard place. And I don't claim to be an expert in all that stuff. So, but anyway, we'll see. And Campbell's really good at that. So HTF close, that is a high time frame close above 76K. High chances Bitcoin pushes towards 86K. Right. Well, so if we get a close above that resistance level, now we're at 75K. They're saying 76. So I'd say 75, 76. Just to take a look at that. And so you guys have that on your radar. The Bitcoin here, look at that resistance, 74K all the way up to 79K. So anywhere in here, to push up to around 76, flip this as support, and then we have a chance. But it really could go either way. And so we'll get into all this here. Let's see. You guys have any questions? You guys are really quiet today. All right, jumping into this. And stick around, though. I've got a coin I want to share with you guys. But and I think it could be, I just bought some, actually, so in full disclosure. And anyone figure it out from my clue? All right, let me see. Extra credit, gold star for anyone who figures it out from the clue in the signal chat. ETH buyers are back. Data shows as bulls defend 2K support. Did I show you the picture, you guys? I met a guy at the Tokenize event. He just casually walked in at a break, and really nice Hispanic-looking guy. Looked young, had his kid with him, and he's like, "Hey, how you doing?" I was like, "Good." And I just said, "Have you been in crypto long?" And he said, "Well, I met this guy 8 years ago, and he shows me a picture of him with not Vladimir, Vitalik Buterin." And I'm like, "You know who this is, right?" And he's like, "No." I think he was playing dumb because apparently he's a millionaire now. He met Vitalik 8 years ago or 9, whatever, and bought a bunch of Ethereum. Nicely done. And so you never know who you'll meet that'll change your life if you act on it. So ETH, however, I don't really love ETH and the chart of ETH. Let me just do this. We could pull it up and just take a look at it. We might as well. I don't want to take my eye off it, and then it runs like, you know what? So let's see. ETH here. There's nothing bullish here. We have a big block of sellers here on ETH. And signal line going green, but that's the only thing there. So more than likely ETH. I think ETH at 1,500 screaming by. Down 1,600, 1,500 down in there. Let's do an alert on that. I just, look, ETH is just ETH is like the Cardano of this cycle. It's kind of like, oh yeah, ETH, boring, slow, not doing much. It's essentially, it's a platform for layer 2s. But it doesn't really address that so what factor. All right, so we can kind of ignore that. Now, while we're here, we might as well look at Solana. Solana, same thing, big sell block. And now I have had this blue fractal on here for a while. And a while meaning, I think since last year, maybe. I can't remember, but I haven't touched it. I haven't moved it. Solana, I think, is at $50. Great buy, but I think we head lower. So really, to thread the needle on this, if we catch a Zcash breakout, we want to be taking profits in here and looking for places to take profits and ahead of the curve. Where might that be if we get to 450? Certainly, I'd be taking profits, maybe even 425. And musical chairs, make sure we have a seat when the music stops. Ultimately, I think this thing's going to run and break 1,000. I think having Zcash, this is going to be our bread and butter, I believe. Trading in and out of this if we can nail it. All right. So with that being said, I would I'm going to ignore all this stuff here. Okay, so losing the 2,000 means a new yearly low could happen soon. Yeah, ETH looks bearish to me, and I do pay attention to the. Well, this is cost basis, so it doesn't really say what the prices are. I don't want to get into that. I thought that might be liquidation levels. All right, so Morgan Stanley, as we said, the Bitcoin ETF. I'll move that to the front. And so this is significant. I've already talked about this. And it'll be the cheapest Bitcoin ETF, so that'll have much lower fees. Remember what happened when the ETFs came out and BlackRock came out, and Grayscale was the big dog on, the big kid on the block, but their fees were super high. And they made a huge error thinking that, well, people won't switch. And then a lot of them did. Grayscale bled to lost a lot of their clients. And so Morgan Stanley coming out to, look at this, ultra 0.14% fee. So they're not effing around here. I mean, they're going to go for some serious volume and create a price war. And and they want all their clients to get in this. So the ETF set to debut on the NYSE, the ARCA Stock Exchange, old day trading platform there, on Wednesday. So that's today. I wonder if they're in here yet, far side. And we won't know until tomorrow what happened, but Grayscale, Morgan Stanley, look at that. And look at the fees, you guys. So as I was just saying, perfectly timed here, Grayscale was like 1.5%, right, the GBTC, and then it just got annihilated with all these low commissions, 0.25 from BlackRock and Fidelity and across the board. And now Morgan Stanley coming out to undercut all of these guys. So there's a price war coming for the Bitcoin ETFs. And, again, we won't really see anything under this column here until end of today. But we'll see. We'll see how much we'll want to monitor this. There's a new kid on the block, potentially. Okay, while we're here, let's take a look at the Ethereum ETFs. Just sort of lackluster. Not a lot going on. Mostly selling. No surprise there. I didn't really want to get to that. I want to look at Solana, though, and keep an eye on Sol. I think hopefully we will also nail the bottom on Solana when that happens. If we get down to $50, maybe buy some futures on that with Coinbase. So, but, not much happening here with Solana either. All right, well, just have to be patient there. But yeah, new listing, Morgan Stanley, we already saw that, so it's already listing, so that's good. And but it's not going to be a massive surge. And this is something I was researching last year. Each one of their RIAs has to start calling their clients and say, "What do you think?" You have a follow. And over time, over the course of this year, I think it'll make a difference. 16,000 advisors. I was off by 1,000. Managing $6 trillion in assets. I was way off on that, but $6 trillion, you guys, that's a lot. So let's just do some math here. I mean, if they advise everyone to put 2%, let's just say 1% of Bitcoin into it of their $6 trillion in assets. Well, let's do some fun math here. So 6 trillion and 10% would be 600 billion, right? And so 1% would be $60 billion. Yeah, I think that can move the needle. What do you think? For sure. Remember when one of the whales sold like 10 billion of his Bitcoin? That was kind of near the top and kind of really was the beginning of the end. So anyway, and Eric Balkunas, they're doing a little screenshot. I'm going to screenshot that and share it with everybody in the Signal chat, because this is monumental, you guys. This is history in the making. Morgan Stanley, you guys, they're pretty big. They're one of the biggest, if not the biggest. Has more crypto offerings in the pipeline. All right, pay attention. MSBT's launch will add to Morgan Stanley's aggressive push into the crypto markets this year. This is highlightable, I'd say. And also applied the bank also applied for a national trust banking charter. Okay, I'm not sure. In February, enable it to custody crypto. I see. Execute sales and swaps for clients and offer staking services, aka earn money via commissions. That's the name of the game, right? They're not doing this for the goodness of their own hearts. All right, related. Bitcoin may hit 110K as strategy absorbs nearly 3x new Bitcoin supply. I did see that. Michael Strategy had a big buy here just yesterday, or I think. All right, and so Morgan Stanley also applied for a staked Ether and Solana ETF in the first week of January. So we'll see what happens. Probably going to take a little while. So later that month, it appointed one of the company's longstanding executives to lead its digital assets team. I think that's important. That's relevant. I mean, they're late to the party, but they're showing up, right? Fashionably late. So Bitcoin Magazine, Bitcoin may face hard fork against any attempt to freeze Satoshi's coins. I don't know if I want to get into that. They might have to do with either the quantum threat or somebody hacking those. And that's a bit of a rabbit hole. But anyway, what else to see? I want to get back to the charts here. How are we doing on time? We're right at an hour. I want to get back to the charts and the coin recommendation. But let's cover this briefly. Shall we? Great. Glad you guys agree. Bitcoin may hit 110K as strategy absorbs. So it sounds a little bit sensationalist, and we'll see. Also, the writer I've never heard of. But anyway, let's see what this says here. Bitcoin may invalidate its bear flag setup. We were talking about that as strategy buys. So there's a third factor, right? So the Clarity Act, and if the Middle East conflict resolves, and then strategy, if it can come in and keep buying. I mean, 16,000 Bitcoin, nothing to sneeze at. Relentless buyers. And there's a funny clip going around of Saylor getting interviewed by someone on CNBC, and the host was sort of saying, well, it isn't essentially a Ponzi, because every time Bitcoin goes up, you issue more debt and take the money to buy Bitcoin. And she thought she had him in a corner, and he's cool. He's just by far the smartest guy in the room every single time. And he just shrugged. He said, well, that's the same thing as Manhattan real estate. You know, the prices go up, developers borrow more and build more real estate, and that's why there's the tallest skyscrapers in the world. It's called economics. And dead silence. So she realized that. She's like, oh yeah, maybe you're right. Yeah, so I mean, thankfully he's our leader, for lack of a better word, but our champion. I say our, but I mean, without Saylor, I don't know what can you imagine? Bitcoin may have failed at this point. I don't know. That's hopefully not something we ever need to. We'll never know. Bitcoin has avoided a bear flag breakdown for weeks as strategy keeps buying Bitcoin. And even at a bear flag, but here's the reality. It doesn't matter if Saylor. So I want to touch on that analogy because I think it's worth noting. Oops, not this, but so let's say Bitcoin goes up in value, right? That means yes, the value of all of their holdings goes up, so they have more value to put up as collateral, right? To then buy more Bitcoin. I mean, you could call it a Ponzi. It is what it is. But if Bitcoin goes up and they raise more money and they have that sort of to borrow against, and they float another bond or they do whatever, and then they have that money, and then Bitcoin goes down, that's great. I know we're not in Bitcoin, but that's fine. They have all this money on the pump to do what? To buy Bitcoin cheaper down below. Makes total sense. Okay, Adrian has to leave. Yeah, so if you have to leave, Adrian, the coin I was going to suggest is good old fart coin. None of you guessed that. I gave some clues in there. I think I said something to the extent that I feel an explosive move coming. And anyway, fart coin here. So same thing, has a bit of a sorry, hang on a second. Let me get to the right chart for one. And we'll get back to the Saylor news. I think it's important. But here, what do we have? Remember when, so that pattern was Zcash. Going down, and back here we had a breakout there, and then it came down below. So this became the resistance trend line, and we're breaking above that. I mean, all joking aside, it is what it is. But it's down like 90%, so someone's buying. We have buyer money flow. And, there's obviously no utility here. Here it says, these 4 crypto stories sound like April Fool's jokes, but they're all real. I checked out the other ones already, and Fartcoin's the only one that looks decent. But hey, look, I will trade sheep and goats if the chart looks good enough to me. And that would include a ridiculous meme coin called Fartcoin. Because what do we have? We had ERIs back here. We bounced out of a buy block. Let me zoom in. You guys can see this. Bounced out of a buy block here. Close enough. And then we have the ERI with money flow breaking above this downward trending trend line. Now, here's for extra credit, though. Why is this potentially a fake out? Right? Anytime you have some of these, if you can rule out institutional buyers, what is that more likely to be from? This is money flow triggering enough of a surge to show up here. And the answer is all the degenerate leverage margin traders, and they love their meme coins in Asia. Bybit, BitGet, some of you, I was talking to Francisca and someone else yesterday about Bybit, and very shady, unregulated exchange. But anyway, all of them with huge margin. So, and these day trading rooms all across the world, I used to trade out of one. All it takes is one person to say Fartcoin running, and back in the day it was Yahoo or Google, and everyone, bam, 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 high margin, they run it up. But is that really a long-term move? Probably not. They'll probably run it up to where? The upper Bollinger Band? Maybe up to this sell block, and then they'll dump it. So we want to watch out for this. I wouldn't go heavy, but because of this buy block and the moving averages are turning up and it's breaking up above this, I think it's got to move up to about 25 cents, and that would be about 25% move right there. Okay, so anyway, but does that help you guys? I'm teaching you to have critical reasoning skills, not solely based on the chart. And we haven't talked about the Russian dolls in a long time, but and I always say, how many of you have heard of this? Pretty much everyone's heard of these. The wooden dolls, and then you take the tie. There's another one inside, and there's another one, and there's another one, right? So, and I haven't said this in a while, so I might get it wrong. But the outer one is the macro viewpoint, and what is where are we in the 4-year cycle, basically, and what's going on in the world, and is there a lot of danger and risk off in the market? And then they say, we take that off and say, all right, well, which sectors are strongest? Okay, and then inside of that is individual coins, and then you can even look at time frames, but just getting the big picture of that. And so, understanding that we are in a risk-off environment, we are in a bear market. Bitcoin, we've already suggested, may head lower. So we're getting open up, then we're like, okay, we should be cautious here, and go for the short-term pop. And taking a closer look at it, though, we if it can get above this 22 cents, then possibly it's in recovery. The TSI in the weekly it's moving up. But again, this is not in contrast to Zcash. This movement is not the big institutions, right? This is going to be those degenerate, and I say that with all due respect. Look, that's part of the market, and I'd say the degens are certainly provide a lot of liquidity, but this is from these gambling mindset, high leverage. So, don't bet the family fortune on this and bet the farm, as they say. Zcash, on the other hand, these are going to be more likely institutions and bigger players, including the degenerates. Look, they all have their part. And some of us we all have a little degenerate in us, And so with that in mind, guys, that's most of what I want to talk about today. I don't want to belabor the point. Let's go back to finish the article, though. I think it's important. Can strategies Bitcoin BTC buying offset weak technicals? And so normally a bear flag remains bearish continuation pattern because there's not enough demand to overcome the broader downtrend. I'm going to they're probably going to talk about what I've already mentioned. And so let's see, Clarity Act and the new Fed chief and What was the other thing? I forget. Let's see. Yeah, but also, so he's buying all of the miners' output and three times the output. So look, supply. We still haven't seen that supply shock that everyone was talking about, and at some point that may happen. And that's why I think the next bull phase is going to be explosive. And, because what would happen at the last cycle top? We had whales who have been waiting patiently for 10 years for that proverbial $100,000 level. And I know we all know one personally, and won't mention, but that 100,000 number that we didn't hit in 2021. Everyone thought we'd hit it then. Everyone was counting their money, and a lot of these whales really had a hard time with that cycle down. So they basically, when it hit 100,000 and 120,000, they're like, I'm out. Look, if you've got a couple billion and you've been holding it since 2011, they sold out to put into AI and other things, as they should have. However, I think a lot of them probably did sell out. There's a few more. The point being, I think that the next move, certainly the next bull market, but I think the next move will see more supply shock and a rapid rise up higher. Because why? A lot of money in the sidelines. The regulatory clarity that is needed for a lot of these big institutional buyers. Hedge funds can do whatever they want. It's in the bylaws. When you invest in a hedge fund, you sign off, say yes, risk, and blah, blah, blah. I'm shorting, okay, cool, unregulated, fine. Likely to lose all your money. Sure, here, sign here. Okay. But pension funds, sovereign wealth funds, other institutions, they don't. They have to invest in regulated markets. So that's ETFs partially, but with new regulation is going to invite more money that's sitting on the sidelines. And we'll start deploying, and I think that's why 50K. We can see it on the charts. So we should all be hoping for a 50K Bitcoin and to load up the truck, as it were. Does that make sense, you guys? I know we're going a lot of directions, but I think that we're on a good, the frame around today's class is a good one, and understanding the levers that should move this market up and down from here. Much of the demand has come through STRC, stretch, and keep in mind, you guys, those of you that are of retirement age and have money on the side, I would look at stretch and strike. They're paying 6 to 12% APY guaranteed. So DeFi is great, but it's not guaranteed. So these are all things to consider, and I would certainly check out these instruments. This is their variable rate preferred stock, Stretch, but there's other ones in there. But this is providing a lot of the money for them to continue buying. And so, if you guys have to leave, you've caught most of it. But, bear flag failure could set. This is just pure speculation, though. It's, there's an old phrase I won't use. But, it's just mental fantasy, I guess you could say. And but until and unless it breaks 76, 78K, it's still there. And so, you indulge in your fantasies if you want to, but I don't see it, and it's more than likely it rolls over. But hey, look, at this point we don't know, right? So going back to this, Bitcoin remains inside a bear flag, as I've been saying. The pattern would begin to fail if the price breaks above the upper trend line, blah, blah, blah. And we've already covered this. It validate the immediate bearish continuation. I think this is likely. What's the catalyst? The 2-week window is up, and then, Trump has the Biden. I don't know. I'm not going to get into it, but I won't get it. I won't jump on the bandwagon of saying how bipolar he's been lately. There are certainly many forces that we don't see, and he's getting pulled in a lot of directions. The war is very costly, and it's getting to the point. That's why I think he got a little bit desperate and said, end this now or else. Because with all of our warships and things over there, it's very expensive. And the midterms are coming up, and now the Democrats are calling for Article 25 to impeach him from office again, and but it's all political theater. Anyway. We'll see what happens, but I think that's likely to happen. Now, Camel, on the other hand, I will just say this: he's calling for suggesting that the lows are in from a cycle perspective, and I think it's fair to cover all points. All right, well, that's interesting. So the Camel Cycle Indicator, not all of you have it. By the way, that's through them, not through me. I think you'd have to go to their website. I don't know it offhand. It's like camelfinance.co.uk. But anyway, it's okay. Well, this is interesting. This must have just triggered. It doesn't usually trigger in real time as our ERI does. But and typically theirs is retroactive, so a few days later it will confirm. But here's what I might just have to eat my own words here. Whenever we see the Camel Cycle Indicator in, followed by the ERI the next day, some of you know this, some of you don't, but this is important. More than likely, that is the bottom near term. And there's a nice move higher. So my best guess here is we see this kind of breakout. It flips everybody long, and then they do this. But it's just a guess. I don't know, you guys. But let's go back. And the interview that I did with Camel, I think it was last year, I proposed that, and I said, this is worth noting. The cycles are interesting by themselves, but so is our ERI. The ERI, basically, the early reversal indicator, when we first discovered it, didn't know why it worked, and then I reasoned it's catching institutional programmatic buying and selling, because the trigger for the ERI, the oscillation, is it has to be below 3, and usually at 0, back above 20 in 3 time periods, in this case the daily. So for that kind of volume and velocity, retail's not moving it that fast. Bitcoin's huge volume, right? Stay with me. So I reasoned that's the institutions. They're coming back in. And then to see the daily cycle in here beforehand, I posed it to Camel. I said, well, wouldn't it be interesting if the institutions are also using cycle theory, and similarly to yours? And Juan Villaverde is another cycle trader, and so, and their whole thing is the cycles are in control, everything else is narrative. Maybe we do live in a simulation and all of this is true. Guys, don't get married to your thoughts. We don't know. And point being, though, here's the point, just to clarify. If that were true, if the institutions were using cycle theory, that could have triggered this move there that our ERI picked up. So the cycle is more predictive, and from a timing window, and then the ERI is catching the price movement. But let's zoom out, because I've shown this before. When these overlap, they are highly likely to push higher. Back here, daily cycle low, right on the ERI. You can't even see it. And that was something I proposed to Camel, and he said maybe. So that maybe it's worth doing another interview with him. I think so, because here again, Camel, the daily cycle low here, followed by the ERI and a bullish engulfing candle. I think we have almost enough evidence to suggest that the big players are also following the cycles. And now it's not 100%, but here again we saw the daily and weekly cycle low, and our ERI went up. It did fail and into this drop. What happened back in April 25? I forget what the cause of that was, but we caught another ERI. But these two together really work well, don't they? Similarly, on the top side, we have the bearish ERI on the daily, and then the cycle low left translated. You can barely see it, but and then over here, also a right translated cycle high and an ERI. So there's a lot of confluence between these. I think I'm going to reach out to Camel and say we should do another interview, because here again, confluence, boom. Or confluence, push up higher. Here again. So isn't that interesting, you guys? Answer yes. Answer is yes. Very interesting. Okay, I feel like I'm talking to the wall here sometimes, but anyway, all good. I think that's about all we wanted to do today. If you guys have any questions or want me to look at anything, let me know. Speak now or forever hold your peace. And I guess while I'm waiting for your responses, similar pattern to current Bitcoin bottom back here. Interesting, rising wedge, possibly a bear flag. Was near the 200-week SMA. I guess they're suggesting that this pattern is similar to the 2018 when it bottomed and pushed higher. Anything's possible, you guys. So we have to wait and see. Yeah, another factor supporting the upside case is a position near its 200-week simple moving average, but it's not near enough. Yeah, I mean, that's a bit of a stretch. We've already covered this. No pun intended to the Michael Saylor instrument. But here, the 200-week is in purple. We're close, but no cigar, as they say. And we barely touched on it. I don't know. I think more than likely we come down in this range. Because of this. Because we have. Here's what we have, guys. Hopefully you guys really are happy you're here. Because I call it the Wizard of Oz indicator. Sure, that could be a wedge to go higher, but look at that thick sell wall on the weekly. Right in here. Nobody else is talking about that, but it's something that we have, no one else does. I won't say nobody. There are a few other people using it, but no one else is talking about it. So, anyway, I think we're getting real close to the holy grail of all these things, and so patience. Our patience will be rewarded. If we don't go broke first. So, and I think I'll just touch on that too. Well, what I was going to say is there's two ways to play this. I was going to say keep swinging at bat. The Zcash for me was a nice little redemption trade and made a little bit of money back that because look, we've been bleeding for 2 years now. And so in some ways, not getting up to bat and pulling the trigger is bad because you might miss a redemption trade. And on the other hand, it depends on your personality. On the other hand, for some of you, maybe just sit out until we wave the flag and blow the horn that it's time to get back in. Monthly ERI. That's it for me. And then go back to aggressive mode. So either are good, but getting some base hits in here right now would be good to kind of refill the coffers a little bit. All right, Bitcoin bottomed out, so I transfer Sailor buy Bitcoin. Some analysts anticipate Bitcoin rise to 400,000 if strategy continues buying Bitcoin at its current rate. That's interesting. That's a soundbite. I might have to do a YouTube. Guys, I'm an old dog learning new tricks. I've had to learn to be a YouTuber and being advised to do some more YouTube shorts. You can tell my enthusiasm in my vocal tonality, but hey, that's what I have to do. Let's see. All right, let's take a look. Michael's suggesting or asking possible mini head and shoulders. I'll just move that over here. Possible mini head and shoulders in the bear flag. Well, let's take a look. I didn't see one, but I also wasn't looking for one. And you know what they say, if all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And so, well, don't look at this messy chart here, by the way. I'm going to go up here. We'll turn off the cycle indicator there. And let me just turn off all the drawings because it's a bit of a messy chart there. And there. And, the Bollinger Band, also signaling we've got a little bit of resistance around that 74K level. But, it can push higher still. All right, so on the daily chart, and I'm not seeing head and shoulders here. Or did you say on a daily? I don't really see it. To me, this is a parallel channel, Michael. Maybe it's more apparent on a weekly, but I don't really see it. Yeah, no, I maybe it's just looking at charts for as long as I have, but there's no clearly defined shoulder or head. I mean, maybe you're saying shoulder and head, but we would need another shoulder there, and it's I don't know. I mean, I don't think so. But I congratulate you and commend you for suggesting and asking. You guys, that's how you learn. and I reserve the right to be wrong. My happiest days are when one of you guys points out something that I missed, because that means I've done my job and taught you to question everything and use your own judgment and trust your own judgment. Okay? Because that's when you've arrived, and that means I've done my job. And you may not need me. I'm certainly not going to be doing this forever. And I love what I do, but this has been a tricky bear market for many reasons, and so I might, if given the opportunity, I would probably take a role with a hedge fund or something. And but anyway, don't worry, I'll be here through the end of the year, I'd say, at least. But at any rate, I think that's all we have time for. Let's take a quick skim of the markets, what's going on, and if we wanted to touch on anything else. We covered the bases pretty well. I know this is a long class, and I commend you for your determination to get through it. So I don't want to waste your time unnecessarily. There's nothing else that I see. I did recommend and have been watching, and I am holding Dashcoin. It's just limping along, so I sold a bunch of that and layered into Zcash. Took profits. I'm out of Zcash and the futures. And this, I'll just say that I was wondering if I had made a mistake here, to be honest. And this was going down, and but I held through that, and I'm glad I did, because I caught that nice pop up here. But I'm happy I took profits. Upper Bollinger Band break, red zone here. I will happily buy it back on a pullback here. Let's just say back to around that region of 280. So I'll do an alert, and we'll see, because I would love to layer on and hit that again on the long side. The symbol for the Zcash perpetual style futures. Now, it's important to differentiation. Coinbase does not opt for the true perpetual futures, which means it can go on and on and on because of U.S. regulations and CME and whatever, has to have an expiration date on it. So what did they do? They did it on the 2030. So that's what? 4 years from now, perpetual style futures. So they call it perpetual style, and that's how they get away with it. But the symbol is ZEC, and then Z, which stands for that December time frame. Same thing on Bitcoin. Bitcoin's is BIPZ, and then 2030. So you can learn those. I think we'll play around with these a little bit more, both on the long and short side, because what I could do is I could go in and short this. That will be a little bit risky, but I do believe that our Bollinger Bands do revert. They'll get back below the band here. However, a bit risky, because it could just launch itself higher again. So I don't know. I wouldn't advise that. I might play with it with a smaller one. And just so you know, I was adding to this. I was buying Zcash futures here, and as it was going up, I was buying more. I bought 10 more yesterday, so I was very happy to cash out on those. Now, on that note, how many of you are interested in, I would probably need to do a separate class on those, because you have to be careful using the margin with Coinbase. And they have this weird thing where you can check on a lever to give you higher margin, but it's only for at certain hours of the day, Sunday through Friday. And if you're holding too large a position, and then you go into one of those other periods, it can liquidate you. But I'll do a video on it. There's a really simple way to do it, both on the app, at least on the app, where it gives you like a speedometer showing where your kind of risk is, and you don't want to have it more than 60 or 70%, right? There's something called margin liquidity, and so I think it's a conversation for another day. But anyway, but these are some new ways we'll be doing this, and then mentoring, we'll be talking about that and how to use options. So some of you are in mentoring, some of you have been, some of you have not been, but those are the new things we're going to be playing around with there. Other things I'm in, I still like Hyperliquid, and this here is it's hitting a sell block on Venice token, but I kind of like this chart. And if it can get up into price discovery zone, I'll definitely be buying more of that. But from this area, and the sell zone could come back down. Everything else just really isn't looking too good. Dashcoin is. So you guys, Dashcoin is a buy on the weekly time frame, a bullish engulfing candle. And at some point, it has a history of having these big surges. But we want to take profits. If we get up to around 60, that would be my take profit level on Dashcoin. And other than that, we talked about Fartcoin there, and I guess my little riddle wasn't as enticing as I thought. What was the riddle? Anyone remember? What did I say? I said, hint. Let's see. This old meme coin has some serious gas behind it, and I feel an explosive move coming. So, anyway, guys, forgive me. I don't talk to humans for days at a time, so I have to amuse myself somehow. And so with that, we've talked about everything else. Nothing else is of interest, really. Near has been popping on my radar, but this is an ugly chart and lots of sellers, so don't even look at that. So anyway, when in doubt, stay out. I would say largely stay out and wait for some pullbacks. Covered all the bases here, and nothing more to say. We're coming up right on 90 minutes, so everyone, I'll wish you a great week. And I'll stop sharing, give you guys a wave. All right, guys, well, that's it. We'll get the replay up as soon as possible. And join us for Retire Rich class tomorrow. And if for any reason you're watching this on a replay, sometimes we'll put it up on social media. Please like the video. Give us a comment below. Anything you'd like me to cover, periodically I will. Although likely I will do a dedicated one for that and a little less detail. But anyway, yeah, we'll look forward to talking to you soon. Cheers, everyone. Bye.